Got it. Hello.
This lane, I think.
I would like to challenge Matt Bozak.
Scotty Bull.
Jason Belmonte.
Well, good Wednesday evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel. Back in our, I guess you could say, our home studio for a change. It's been, I want to say, a few months since I've been able to do this show from down here, but happy to be back in a comfortable spot and ready to bring on a great guest tonight. We are going to start out by talking about some string pins, because that seems to be all the conversation right now. And the way the days worked out as far as, between shows, there's been a major development since the last time I went on live last week. Since then, the USBC said that its research now shows that there is no statistically significant difference between the scoring pace of its USBC certified string pin setters and traditional free fall pin setters. Because of that, the USBC now considers averages between those pin setter types to be interchangeable, as long as the string pin setter has been certified by USBC. It made that announcement late last week. Now, the study that they're talking about involved more than 500 bowlers bowling more than 3,500 games. The organization says it has sufficient statistical power to identify a difference of 4 pins or larger if there was such a difference during their research. It will list averages bowled on certified string pin machines on bowl.com with a designation to show they were on certified string pin machines. And it also plans to keep monitoring averages across the country as some transition to leagues on string pin machines to collect more data. I've mentioned a few times on this show that I've never bowled on string pins yet. Certainly interested to do so, to formulate an informed opinion. And you people will be the first to know when I do, because I will be happy to provide my thoughts, hopefully in a video of some type, to you once we get going on those string pin machines. Well, this week, really less than a week now, is a special time here at Bowling with the Fef, for it is Feftacular Week. This is a tradition that dates back to last year. Feftacular 2 coming to you live this time around. This next Wednesday, November 22nd, 6:30 p.m., it's league night at Village Bowl in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. They call it the Country Club of Bowling. And this is the time when I joined the world-famous Serbskis Club as a sub and experienced the legendary league night that the team chronicles in great detail on their Facebook page. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It is the Feftacular 2. We're going to have special guests. We're going to celebrate bowling and the characters of the sport live in 1 week at Village Bowl, Menominee Falls, the Country Club of Bowling. Can't wait for that. Well, Bowling with the Fef is brought to you, as always, by Chip Magnet Salsa. Chip Magnet is a local product. They make it right here in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. It is distributed to more than 38 states now, and Canada. If you want it and you're in Iowa, you can find it in Hy-Vee and in Waterloo, as well as Whole Foods and Fairway throughout the state. Or what you can do is stay online here. You can go to chipmagnetsalsa.com. Enter this promo code BWTF2023 at checkout. You'll get 20% off your purchase of $30 or more on the website. Limit 1 order per email address. If you haven't tried it, give it a shot. They've got all kinds of flavors, hot, mild, and medium. It is fantastic, if I do say so myself. Wildly delicious and mango habanero, which you saw in these images, are my favorites. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards, and always a big thank you to Chip Magnet for supporting bowling and Bowling with the Fef. Connor Brown, tuning in live, says, "Hey, Fef, how are you, man? I'm going to get my information to you within next week for our live stream." That's awesome. Connor's going to be coming on the show next month. Can't wait to have him on and explore his bowling story as we do here each and every week on Bowling with the Fef. Well, our guest tonight is a high-level competitor. He's an ambassador. He is the tournament director and Hall of Famer in bowling in the state of Iowa. Joe Engelkes is the tournament administrator for the Greater Iowa Bowling Association. That's a scratch tournament tour that has had incredible success in that state, brings out some of the best players in the nation for those events. And we're going to talk about that as well as his bowling story too in an episode that we are calling Can't Stop Us Now, because it takes a village to put on big events like GIBA. But Joe, first of all, welcome to Bowling with the Fef. Glad to have you here tonight.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Glad to be on, and hopefully we get a nice crowd watching.
Yeah, I appreciate all the promotion you've done in advance of this. I know a lot of folks are excited to hear your story. I want to start out by talking about a bowler in Iowa that many of us know of because he's been probably one of the most successful in your state's history, and that's Tom Hess. I reached out to Tom in advance of this episode, and he told me that you are one of the most respected bowlers in the state, not only for your bowling ability, but for how much effort that you put into making the GIBA one of the best tournaments that he's ever bowled. He says that your passion and dedication to the sport are unmatched, and he's thankful for your friendship and guidance in his more than 30 years of bowling those events. That's a lot to unpack, and I feel like we'll do that in the course of this hour. But Tom has a special event coming up this next year when he is inducted into the Iowa State USBC Hall of Fame. And from what I've read, you have a little to do with that, don't you?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange story. About 5 or 6 years ago, Tom was nominated by his local association in Des Moines to be on the ballot for the State Hall of Fame in Iowa. And for various reasons, he got passed over for 3 years, which to me was just a travesty, but it just happened. And he was kind of down on the whole thing. Wasn't real sure he even wanted to be considered again. And I had a long little conversation with him, and we kind of agreed that if he would get me his information, I would rewrite his nomination forms and pretty much tell the story a little differently than what the original nomination was and get it submitted. Had to go to the Des Moines Association to have them sign off on it as well. And they added a little bit to it as also. And then they turned it in. And after some other behind the scenes stuff that I went through with the State Hall of Fame committee, got them to kind of reconsider their thought process. And fortunately, when they had their vote early in October, he was one selected. So that was a very proud and happy moment for me. And I know it made Tom real proud as well.
Yeah. Tell me about how you got word of that decision and what it was like to hear about it.
Well, I've got some behind the scenes connections across the state from all the years that I've been involved in things. I'm also the chairman of our local Hall of Fame committee. So when we submit bowlers from the Waterloo Cedar Falls area for nomination, I end up signing off and making sure they get submitted. And we have a gentleman, Al Menga, who is an expert at doing the right thing and writing these things up in the right manner and getting them put in front of the committee in a way that shows our bowlers in really good light. And because of that, we've got the reputation of kind of knowing what we're doing a little bit. And I think I was finally able to convince some key people that there needs to be more scratch bowling input into their selections. Like many committees on the state level, it's made up of administrative people, meritorious service Hall of Famers, but a lot of them don't maybe have a big true feeling of what it takes to win 5 Iowa Opens or 3 of our major GIBA titles and that type of thing. And if there isn't somebody that can tell that story in the right manner, it doesn't always go through the right way, the way it should.
Sure.
And like I say, I had some connections, and I probably overstepped my bounds a couple of times if the truth were to be told. But fortunately, they took it the right way, and we're making some real progress on the committee for the state of Iowa. I told them I'd be more than happy to serve down the road when it comes time to select 3 new members, which they do every year. And but it's moving in the right direction. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know there was plenty of fanfare for bowlers, really across the Midwest and the country who know of Tom's accomplishments about that decision. And to see him get elected to the Hall of Fame there is a really good thing. And Tom's story is on our show too. We've had him on. So if anybody out
Sure.
there is looking to learn more about Tom, you can certainly find that on the channel here. Jake Bedard says, Joe's the best. Do you know Jake?
Jake's a really good friend. In fact, I'm bowling a tournament with him in a couple of weeks at Cadillac XBC. And yeah, he bowls almost virtually all of our GIBA events.
Cool.
And I bowled some events with him in the past, and he bowls in the league on our Masters League on Thursday night. Different team, but we're friendly competitors, I guess I would say.
Okay.
And he works as hard as anybody at his game.
Yeah. Cool. Good to see, and glad to see you on live, Jake. If anybody else is on live, wants to throw out a question or add in their 2 cents, that live chat window is open and ready for you to use. Your next event is coming up later this month, the Iowa Open on the 19th at May City Bowl in Cedar Rapids. Now, as mentioned in the description of this video, it is full with a waiting list of almost 2 dozen. Tell me about why there is such a great response to this one. Is this, something special? Does this happen every month? And, what are you telling the folks who want a bowl but maybe won't be able to get a spot?
Yeah, the Iowa Open has a lot of history. Many years ago, when I started bowling back in 1977, it was actually at that time a 2-weekend event where you qualified on the first weekend, and the top 24 qualifiers came back the following weekend and bowled 12 games on Saturday and 12 on Sunday, match play, head-to-head, round robin match play, and with bonus pins. And the winner was the one that had the most pins at the end of those 24 games. So back in those days, it was probably 200, 250 entries. Fell on some tough times when the BPAA quit sponsoring it. And, they used to send 2 members, the winner and the second place finisher, to the US Open. But that fell apart. I'm going to say probably in the early 1990s, somewhere in there. And they still had the Iowa Open, but it just kept losing prestige, and they quit paying for the entry to the US Open. And about, I don't know, I'm going to say about 10 years ago, maybe even longer than that, it might have been 15 years ago, we added it to the Greater Iowa schedule. I talked to some of the members of the state BPAA and asked them if they would like me to start promoting and running the tournament for them. And they did pay for a spot for a few years, and then that fell apart. Well, then about 7 or 8 years ago, when USBC took over the US Open, may not have been that long ago, they had what they call a qualifier event for the US Open, but you had to jump through some hoops, fill out some paperwork, send them the $500 entry fee, and get approved, and then have a contract signed with USBC to run a qualifier. I found out last year the Iowa Open's been the only direct qualifying tournament in the country.
Wow.
I think there may be one or two more this year, finally, after that information got out. But that's one of the big things for us is we have our winner gets a paid entry to the U.S. Open.
Oh.
And we do draw some entries from a little bit bigger area, probably because of that. And part of the problem that we deal with is time constraints with bowling centers now.
Sure.
So it's a one-day event. We use the flat U.S. Open old-fashioned pattern because I'm kind of an old-fashioned guy.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see, our qualifier that goes to the U.S. Open needs to be a player.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of the younger college guys love to come and play that tournament when they can. Our members all want to play. And it filled up, probably a month ago, a little over a month ago. And I started taking names for the waiting list. But, it's fun to run that tournament. We like to challenge the guys. We hold it every year at May City Bowl in Cedar Rapids. And there's a couple reasons for that. The owner, proprietor there, Tom Turchka, is one of the best proprietors in the state of Iowa. I know when I have the tournament there, he's going to give us exactly what we want as far as the pattern. He does change it up a little bit every year. The distance is usually the same, but he's got 2 or 3 different oils he uses. He'll change the volume a little bit, make the few changes you can make in a one-to-one pattern, but
Sure.
It never plays the same. So, the winner, we take the top 10 to a round-robin match play finals after 7 games of qualifying, and the winner earns the victory, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a high-profile event.
Yeah. Well, that's
plus
awesome.
It's a double points event for our point list for the Greater Iowa as well.
Okay. So a lot on the line, and best of luck to those who are competing. DJ says, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Engelkes. And I'm assuming you know DJ a little bit?
Yeah, DJ started working at Cadillac XBC in the back. Okay. And is one of their mechanics. And I also bowl with him on Tuesday nights now. So, he's a very strong young player, gets a lot on the ball. Okay. Makes me look a little revolution lacking, no doubt.
Yeah.
But right. Fun guy to bowl with for sure.
Yeah.
He's an up and comer.
Okay. And Jake says dropped it to 7 games this year. Is that the Iowa?
Yeah, we were 8 games qualifying. The time constraint got to be a little tough. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to affect the prize fund, and I've only been paying $2 a line, to be honest, which is nothing in this day and age. Yeah. So instead of increasing that number, I decided to drop it down to 7 games. I think 7's enough to make a good determination on the 10-man qualifying group. So we're going to give that a try. Save us about 45 minutes to an hour because there's 5 on a pair. Okay. In qualifying. So sorry about that, Jake. I know you would like that extra game, but we're going to give this a try and see how it works.
Yeah. And Jake, let's put it this way. That extra game could have been a 180. So,
sometimes 180 is not all bad on that pattern.
That's why I picked that number, right?
Yeah,
the middle there could be good, could be bad, but
right.
I'm sure either way, it'll be a great event. So another gentleman I reached out to before this episode is Steve Landry. And I asked him about you. He said that you are a great family man from what he's seen. Great bowling family that he knows and seen personally. Just one of the greatest contributors to bowling, probably in the Midwest, especially with those events that you run. I mean, that's got to be kind of cool. You probably don't hear that in the heat of battle when you're running them, but to hear it, in any way, shape, or form, I mean, that's got to feel good, right?
Yeah, it does. Steve's a great guy. I was sorry to see him and Nicole move down to Texas. They're down in Houston now. Steve bowled in the Masters League on one of the teams we bowled against, and so did Nicole for that matter. And they were coaching up at Upper Iowa until they dropped that program. And a lot of respect for Steve. He's got a lot of game, throws the ball very well. Appreciate all the kind words. And I've been pretty fortunate. I think over the years, myself and my family have earned quite a bit of respect just because of the way we choose to run our tournaments. And so we do hear some of those kind words from time to time, and they do make a guy feel good. But really, the thing that makes me feel the best is being able to fill tournaments a month before they come up, and knowing that the bowlers like what we give them, and they keep coming back. That's a big deal to me.
Yeah, and that's, proof is in the pudding. When you get those entries, then that
Right.
that you're doing something good there. Let's kind of go back to the beginning in your story, and from what I read online, is that you didn't get your start in bowling till you were 22.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange story. I used to when I was in high school, I used to go up to Cadillac Lanes, and I kept score for my dad's team. They bowled second shift. I'm going to get this. I'm in high school now. They bowled second shift, started at 9 o'clock, didn't get done till midnight on Thursday nights in the LaPorte City Men's League. And that's back in the grease pencil days, and you get your hand burnt keeping score. But they would let me keep score for them, and then on the way home we'd stop in a late night establishment that served breakfast, and they'd buy me breakfast. So sometimes I didn't get to bed till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. But that's kind of how I got started with liking the sport. Didn't really, I bowled a little bit recreational through high school, but I was more involved in baseball and basketball and track and that kind of stuff. But then after I went to a year of college and kind of struggled a little bit with what I wanted to do, I ended up getting drafted and went into the Army.
Okay.
And that's where I really got my first opportunity to do much bowling. I was fortunate enough to be in a year or two older than a lot of the new recruits that came in. I got made a platoon leader, and I got to know the drill instructors really well. And it just happened that one of the drill instructors and my Master Sergeant Manning and Sergeant Davis, both bowled league. They asked me to come down and watch them bowl league. So I started going down there just about every evening after we get done with all our physical training and all that. And the other guys would go to the bar and drink, and I'd go watch these guys bowl. Yeah. And I really got the bug. Well, then I went to advanced training, also Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and bowling was really big there. Through advanced training, I still go down and watch those guys bowl. And then I got my orders, and I ended up getting orders for Vietnam. So I went and spent a year in Vietnam. And I was a company clerk over there. Pretty good duty. Kind of in a more or less a city. And they had office buildings in my post, and I was a headquarters company clerk because I could type really good, and and I had some training in writing letters and that type of thing, cutting orders. And I got some special permissions there. I got to go down to Saigon to MACV headquarters. Actually bowled in the little 8-lane center down there a little bit. Played golf at the golf club de Saigon once a week. Yeah, it was a real tough duty for me, but not all fun and games for sure. But wasn't the worst duty I could have chosen. I was fortunate there. But I really got the bug for bowling. And when I got back home in December 1972, I'm sorry. First thing I did was go to Cadillac Lanes and drilled up my first bowling ball. I got a Brunswick Black Diamond.
Okay.
And I started bowling a little bit. Went back down to Fort Leonard Wood for my last 6 months in the service. and joined up with a couple of those guys, and they let me bowl a little bit sub for them since it was halfway through their season already. But they had opened a brand new 40-lane center the week before I got there.
Wow.
And they had Dick Ritker come down for an exhibition and a clinic. And by that time, I already had gotten to know them, the proprietor, the manager of the bowling center. Well, after the clinic was over, we sat in the lounge, ate supper with Dick Ritker, and talked. I sat and talked to him for over 2 hours.
Wow.
And I learned more in those 2 hours than I could have learned in 2 years of bowling on my own.
Sure.
And I started bowling 10, 15 games a day. Cost a dime a game. Real tough.
Yeah.
But when I got out in June that year, first thing I did was check into bowling a couple leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Started bowling the Port City Men's League and the Viking League at Cadillac, and it was something. I was a pretty good athlete through high school and in the service. I got to play flag football, team handball, swam on the brigade swimming team. I did a little bit of everything, and always had good hand-eye coordination. Well, that pays dividends in bowling.
Oh, yeah.
And so I progressed fairly quickly, even though I was 22 years old. By the time I was, in 76, I joined my first scratch league.
Okay.
So I bowled basically 73, 74 season and 74, 75. And then that following year, I started bowling scratch league.
Wow.
And I was fortunate enough for some guys to take me in under their wing, Al Meninga and Ron Meninga, Emmett Traggard. And at that time, I guess Bruce Skerrick wasn't with us yet. But the year after I started, then Bruce came in, and we started bowling nationals in 1977.
Okay.
And so I got 46 consecutive years there, but they were pretty serious about bowling too. We traveled to the Greater Iowa tournaments. I'd started working. I graduated college in 77 and started working at a John Deere dealership as their controller. Didn't have a lot of money. So fortunately, Dale Diamond, he was running the Greater Iowa at that time. He let me kind of earn my entry fee by helping out the day of the tournament, collecting scores, checking scores, checking people in, that kind of stuff. And so I got a big thanks to him. And then the Fran and Rick Amy took care of me bowling equipment wise. Rick gave me a yellow dot that was used, and Jack Ritzman gave me a Manhattan rubber ball. That was my arsenal. And I shot my first 300 game. This is pretty cool. In 1977, using those two balls.
Wow.
Manhattan rubber on one lane, the yellow dot on the other one. There was some difference there. So that's kind of one of my first real claims to fame, I guess. And not too many guys had that in their arsenal back in those days. But I got the bug real bad after that. I started bowling every scratch tournament I could get into, helping out with Greater Iowa, and from there it progressed. And I think in 1980, I had my first 1,800 all events at nationals. That was in Louisville, I believe. Yeah, I was in Louisville, and then we went to Memphis the following year, and I had another 1,800. So now I started figuring out I had a little bit to do there. Then 1983, and that was in Niagara Falls. Mm-hmm. I shot my first 700 in nationals and singles, and I think it was 706, and I finished 19th.
Wow.
So that was, back in those days, that was a heck of a score.
Yeah.
And, little story there in doubles. I bowled with Emmett Traggart, and we were cruising along through two games, and guys came out with the cameras, and they were we were really in good shape to try to take over lead. And unfortunately, I felt really bad when we were done because Emma ran into just splits all over the place the last game. And I don't know. I can't remember exactly. I think he shot 126 or something like that the last game, and we ended up finishing about in the 30th or something like that. But we did okay, but we had a shot at something there. And I ended up with 1937, I think, all events, and that was 21st for the tournament. So the scores were really low back in those days. That was a pretty good deal for me. But and from there, just kept progressing. Started bowling with Fran and Rick Amy and their team, and Steve Barry was on the team, and Kurt Kroll, 1986, and we bowled in. That one was in Las Vegas. That was my first time with them, and right away I shot 690 in team. Fran shot 690 in team. We put on a real nice show. Had a big crowd watching us when we were done. Finished in the top. I think we finished 9th or 10th that year, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I went over and bowled the Bowler's Journal through 19 strikes in a row there at the showboat. So that was a lot of fun, and it just kept building from there. 89, the high scoring one in Wichita. Started singles 279, 279. Had the front 9 both games. Left a 10 pin each game. Double to start the third game. Never double. Never had another double. Struck 2 other times on the left lane. Never struck again on the right lane. So 203 clean for 761. Which I was thinking something big maybe, but it didn't happen. Sure. But since then we've had a lot of big showings and team event. Started bowling doubles with my son, which is the coolest thing ever. About gee whiz. Time gets away from me, maybe 10 years ago now, something like that. And El Paso, he shot 300 first game of doubles.
Wow.
Highlight of my career, getting to observe that. So that was pretty cool. And I've career average 203 point something or other, which for 46 years, pretty good.
That's really good.
Yeah, my goal is to make 50 years and keep that 200 plus average, and then hopefully get to 100,000 pins at some point. It'll take a few more good years since I didn't start bowling until I was 26. It's but we're a ways away from that. But lots and lots of great memories with the game, bowling wise. Started around the Greater Iowa in 1999. Took it over from Dirk Weed. And Dave Jantoski ran it for a year. Then he moved out of the area, and I took it over. And I told the guys, all the members, all the bowlers, I'll do this. I'll run it, and my family will help me. But there's one condition: I'm bowling the tournaments. The only way I'm doing this is if I get to bowl, because I wanted to grow the tournament for the guys, for the bowlers, but I wanted to grow it for myself as well. Sure. And I think the guys understand that. Of course, a lot of the young guys weren't around when that all took place, but that was a big thing for me, was that as long as I could still bowl, I'll do this.
Sure. Wow. A lot to unpack there. I want to start out by saying thank you for your service. I don't care if you're volunteer, if you're draft, whatever. That's, huge respect to you and the men and women who make those sacrifices, for country. That's awesome. Jake, I've got some comments here. Jake says lifting, or he meant lofting the capping. He's probably talking about the Iowa Open. Rick Erickson says, wonderful family, Hall of Fame bowler, really good golfer, and just a good guy. You mentioned golf. Is that a big thing for you too?
Believe it or not, I was a golfer way before I was a bowler, and that was my original goal in life, was to be maybe not a professional golfer, but a top amateur player.
Okay.
I was a scratch golfer for probably, I don't know, 35, 40 years. Slipped a little bit since I turned 60 and had my knee replacement. But I think I won my local club championship something like 40 out of 42 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's some crazy number anyway, but yeah, I was awful good at the sport of golf for a long time. But and the funny part is I'm right-handed, but I golf left-handed.
Oh, okay.
It's the only clubs I had was my dad's, and he played left-handed, so I had to learn to play left. Like I say, I got decent hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, sounds like it. And Jake, says probably a better golfer. So there you go. Like I said, a lot to unpack there. Um, I want to kind of talk about that start that you had, kind of relatively later, as far as many of us who end up being competitive bowlers. But you caught up fast. It seems like you were a quick study. You mentioned the time that you spent with Ritger, but what did it take to kind of get going and get to the point where 3-5 years from when you really started seriously doing this, you're competing in scratch leagues and going to nationals and doing tournament tours and things like that?
Oh, well, I think the big thing was probably those first 6 months that I really took bowling seriously and bowling 10, 12, 15 games in a day with some really good fundamental background laid down to me by Dick Ritter.
Yeah.
My game is really, really simple. I don't think anybody has a simpler game than me. I've been a four-stepper my whole career and never have timing issues. And that part of it came quick and easy for me. From there, it was just a matter of getting a good spare shooting system in place, being able to repeat shots, which is your hand-eye coordination and your timing factors. And those were the things. And then, well, I tell you, Waterloo, Cedar Falls area has had just tons and tons of top-notch bowlers over the years.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to get in fairly quickly with that group and learn from them what it takes to go to the next level. They dared me to go bowl my first Greater Iowa Bowling Association tournament, and I was lucky enough I got a check, and all of a sudden I got some respect, and now it really lit the fire and got it going. It was blazing by then, and I bowled everything I could. Scratch tournaments, handicap tournaments, weekend stuff. And we were pretty fortunate. We had a lot of bowling centers in Waterloo, and there were Saturday and Sunday events locally that you could bowl, just pay on the spot type tournaments, things like that, 3 gamers. And it was some years it was how I earned grocery money. And, so it was kind of like Lee Trevino in golf.
Mm-hmm.
You use your last $8 or $10 to enter the tournament, you better cash.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, or you're going to go without eating that week, that type of thing. So there was a lot of that the first 10 or 12, 15 years I bowled. But by the mid 80s, I was more established in my job, making some decent money.
Sure. Did you ever do regionals or consider going out on tour?
I bowled 3 regionals, all of them here local, and I cashed in all of them. Made the top 16 twice. I got beaten at finals, step ladder finals by Mike Shady. So I got 5th. That was the highest I ever did. But got a lot of nice compliments from Dick Weber. Happened to be up that week helping with the tournament, and I think Rich was there. No, John was there for sure. I can't remember if Rich was there too. He might have been, but they were all complimenting me on my game, and of course Dick was kind of that way. And I had years before I had bowled a exhibition against Dick when Adrian Erickson purchased Electric Park Lanes. He had Dick Weber come up for an exhibition, and I got to bowl with him. And I also bowled the Masters 3 times. Made the first cut all 3 times. Didn't make the top 63 for match play, any of them, but got a check every time. So, yeah. And I earned those through winning the points title of the Greater Iowa. And then we had a Masters tournament that got a paid entry to the Masters. So I won that. In fact, the one year I won that tournament and the Master and the point style. So I had 2 spots. And so I sold one of them to Danny Torgerson, or gave it to him, and then we split it what money he won. So
okay.
yeah. So I bowled a little bit. I got to cross with some Dave Ferraro and some other really good bowlers. Met a lot of them in the Masters when I went out there to bowl. So that was kind of fun. And we get to compete against quite a few of the PVA guys in our big tournaments here in Waterloo.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
is there a moment or an event or anything like that in your competitive career that you would, that you remember kind of as your signature moment, or maybe the time when you really feel like you kind of planted your flag in the ground?
boy, I don't know that I guess maybe the finishing 5th in that regional really was pretty cool, because Parker Bone came up and bowled that too. And I lost my match to him 269 to 268.
Wow.
And he apologized to me when we got done, because he got away with one really bad shot that went through the nose and carried. And he says, boy, you threw it better than I did this game. He says, you got a lot of game. And I thought, well, that, of course, part of that's Parker. He's just that way. He's a good guy. But yeah, that was, and then I shot 290 in the position round to get around Mike Shady to go to 4th, and then he beat me in the first match. But that was kind of fun when with that pressure on to shoot that kind of game to make the top 5 to get in the step ladder. So those are things that, and I've crossed with Pete Weber a couple times in tournaments, and knowing that I can go out there and compete with those type of players and not look foolish. Yeah. But as far as any one experience, I don't know. I don't know that I really could point my finger. The one bad experience that I can point my finger at was the last time I bowled the Masters was in Reno, and I think at that time they had 5 squads and no re-oil.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine by the 5th squad of the day what they were like. Well, that was my draw for the you only bowled 10 qualifying before the first cut back in those days. It was the early 90s.
Okay.
And I bowled with Jimmy Schroeder. He's old timer, USBC Hall of Famer, ABC Hall of Famer, and he couldn't get the ball to not hook enough. And I had a black U dot I was throwing that I could shave in. I mean, it was polished to the hilt, and I was not lofting the gutter cap, but I was as close as you could get to doing that. And I was second high on the squad that night. But get this, we didn't get done till 2:00, and out of their wisdom, ABC had me scheduled for the A squad the next morning.
Oh no!
For our next round of for the cut to 63.
Wow, no sleep.
And I showed up with little sleep, and at the time I had it had to be before 92 because I didn't have a reactive ball. I was throwing either that black U dot or a blue hammer.
Okay.
And the blue hammer was the most hooking thing I had. And I walked in that morning and everything backed up. Ugh. I mean, I was tired. I couldn't get far enough right. I was lofting the right gutter cap, trying to get it to the head pin the first 2 or 3 games. And that's when I was bowling crossing with Dave Ferraro. And I knew I was in trouble. He walked in with a freshly drilled bowling ball with probably 200 surface on. I mean, it was charcoal. And he could get the ball to hook about, of course, he didn't hook it a lot anyway, but he could get the ball to hook about 3 boards, and that was 3 more than I could get it to hook. So I think I was close to 100 under for the first 3, and then the last 2, I finally got the ball to hook a little bit and shot a couple little 200 games, but I didn't make that next cut because I just didn't have the right equipment with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of the negative story for my Masters experience for sure.
Sure. And they always say it's near impossible to out bowl bad ball reaction or no ball reaction in that case.
Right.
Yeah. So you're competing, and you mentioned the GIBA. You have the history competing in it, and in the late 90s you have this opportunity to take it over, and you said, I'm only doing it if I can bowl in it as well. That's kind of something that, you know, people kind of not sure about. If I'm bowling a tournament and the tournament director is also bowling in it, how do you get around that, that part of it? You said when you started, everybody understood, but we're years past that now.
Yeah, I think it was kind of perpetuated across the years. When I started in 99, at that point in time, I think I already had somewhere around 15 GIBA titles. And, everybody respected my game.
Yep.
And they knew that because I'd been involved in the administrative part of it for a few years, as not as the main administrator, but helping the day of the tournament and things like that, they knew that it would be done right and that we would carry on things in the right manner. And so I didn't have a problem selling the guys on that. Where it became a little bit more of an issue was when we started using patterns.
Sure.
The one thing I won't do is I won't dictate the pattern. Yeah. If I'm bowling, like when we have our major events, what I'll tell Rich Amy, who is the proprietor for both centers here in Waterloo now, if we're bowling at Maple where maybe they're a little bit tighter or a little bit more hooky, the surface used to hook a lot more, but until they had their fire, now it's not quite so much. But I'd tell him we want to go a little bit longer, but nothing overboard. 43 feet's long enough.
Sure.
And good volume, somewhere around a 2-to-1 ratio. From there, it's their baby.
Yeah.
We go to Cadillac, I'd say anywhere 38 to 42 feet, 2-to-1 ratio. From there, it's your baby, Yeah. Because I'm going to bowl those events. Mm-hmm. And I don't see the actual pattern until we post it the Friday of the practice session.
Okay.
So, and it's the same way when we go to other centers at Bowlerama. Jason Guest picks the pattern. The only one everybody knows is May City, but I don't know what oil he's using. I don't know what he's doing. Volume wise, I just know it's going to be 1-to-1 for the Iowa Open. But everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And for Jeff Riddle's 11th frame, they post the pattern. Everybody knows it. I don't bowl that one. Okay. It's in August, and I'm still golfing then. I don't really start bowling until September. So I try to distance myself from all that kind of stuff. And I also, it's hard to talk about some of this because it's kind of, I don't like to toot my own horns. I'm serious about that. I try to be humble as much as possible, but the things that we do, when I took it over, what I told the guys is I'm going to do things based on what I would want as a bowler myself.
Yeah.
That's how the tournaments are going to get run. And when we started running brackets, half the money from the bracket proceeds goes back in the prize fund every time. Yeah. They know that. They get some other administrator to come in and run the tournament. Most likely that's not going to happen.
Right.
I try to choose. The other thing I ask of, John Janowitz helped us with a lot of the patterns early on. Rory Holland was our guy. He designed 3 or 4 patterns for us early on. What I told them is I don't want them to favor anybody.
Yeah. Do
your best to let the left side play, let the right side play. The tweeners can play, the strokers can play, the heavy hitters can play. We're looking for something that's middle of the road.
Yeah.
And does it always work? No. But that's always the goal.
Yeah.
It's always the goal. not something that's easily accomplished in this day and age, but
Sure.
that's what we try to do. And they know that we're looking 0 to 50 over to make the cut, and if you make the cut in our big events, you're going to make some decent money.
Yeah.
Because everybody that makes the cut makes cashier's round.
Okay.
Well, except for the 11th frame, I guess there's 4 that don't, but
Okay.
they still cash.
Yeah.
So,
And
it's,
I mean, here's the proof: is Jake saying when Joe is bowling, we as bowlers root for him to do well.
yeah, they do. I'm getting to the point where I don't do as well now as I used to. 72 years old with a bunch of arthritis, and my game is slipping a little bit. But I still like to compete with the young guys. It keeps me young, keeps me in tune with what they're looking for in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I get a feel for the pattern and whether it's something we want to maybe use again in the future or not. Those kind of things. Where if you're standing back watching, you kind of get an idea, but do you really know what's going on out there?
That's true.
Yeah, it's. I like cash as much as anybody, but the main thing is I want tournaments to be successful.
Yeah.
And hands-on for me has helped in that. I truly believe that.
Sure. You mentioned Jeff and the 11th Frame Open. I did hear from him too. He mentions the entries that you get are a testimony to the work that you and your family do, and you can still bowl at 70ish. One of the pictures that you sent over was from that 11th Frame Open event. I believe is that
Yes,
Nate?
it is.
Nate in the middle.
Nate Stubler, you bet.
Stubler. Okay, so tell me.
3-time champion, I think.
All right.
2 for sure. Might be 3.
Yeah.
He's won a couple of our big other tournament, Ebonite tournaments as well.
Sure, he's a tremendous player.
Oh, yeah.
That the event. Tell me how that came to be, and why that partnership is so valuable from your perspective.
Yeah, Jeff. I'd known him for a while. He bowled some of our tournaments, and he bowled a number of our major tournaments when they were the Fusion Realtors Opens when we first started them in 2011. I knew him just a little bit before that, but when he started coming and bowling, and he started respecting what we were trying to build, and he started 11thframe.com blog, his bowling blog, and he really helped us get the word out. He took a real strong hand in making sure that he published our flyer and the stories from our tournaments and our schedule and all that. And, he got to know how we went about doing things and how involved my family is with this whole thing. And he had run the 11thframe.com Open. I don't know when the first one was. It would have been about 2015 or so, maybe.
Okay. 14,
15, somewhere in that neighborhood. And we were involved at that one. And then it didn't run the next year. But he wanted to resurrect it and run it again. And he approached me about whether I'd put it on the Greater Iowa schedule. And I said, absolutely. The only problem I have is Ebonite is our sponsor. Wow. And Storm was the sponsor for the 11thframe.com. So I wrote a nice letter to Rob Gottschall, who was our rep at Ebonite at the time. Mm-hmm. Real good friend of ours, bowled a lot of our tournaments before he got involved with Ebonite, before he moved to Kentucky. And he was gracious enough to allow us to keep the Storm sponsorship and put it on our schedule.
Cool.
So we did that, and I don't know, the first year I think Craig Elliott came and did a live stream. Mm-hmm. Might have done it maybe even the first 2 years, and then we were not able to continue that because we lost our sponsor for the live stream. And in the meantime, in 2012, Mike Flanagan came up and did his very first major live stream event for the Fusion Realtors Open. Mike and I got to be really good friends now. He does both of our Ebonite events live streams whenever he can now. And I think we're going to get him for the 11thframe.com Open next year, since he's back now living in St. Louis, just moved back to the Midwest, and he can make the trip easier. But yeah, he has done a lot to help promote our events too. We get, I think the last I looked, our winter Ebonite tournament from last spring had over 70,000 archive views on YouTube of the archived tournament that he live streamed. So that helps get the word out, no doubt. Plus, it helps us get sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of how we ended up growing this thing, is we got a reputation built. We were able to attract some sponsors. Ron Bragg came on board with Brunswick many years ago, back only 3 or 4 years after I started running these things. And they donated some balls for our point list for a few years. And then we were with Storm for a short time after Mike Flanagan came on board and went to work for Storm. I've kind of followed him over there because he made us an offer we couldn't refuse. Then he left Storm and ended up with Ebonite. And between him and Rob Gottschall, we got hooked up with Ebonite, and we've been with them ever since, even after the Brunswick purchase. But that's been they do a great job. They jumped on board to sponsor both of the Ebonite events, our major ones after that. After we lost Fusion Realtors as our title sponsor, they took over on that. And we were able to pick up Brandon Steen with the Steen team. He's a realtor and now here in the local area, and also did a lot of financing for real estate. And he's been on board, gee whiz, since about 2013 or 14 as a title sponsor for the events. And now he's title sponsor. Now we got another title sponsor just came on board, Ed Morse Ford Lincoln down in Muscatine, just joined us as a title season-long title sponsor. We've got I Am Bowling. They jumped in a few years ago. And Quick Star, Quick Trip. That's kind of near and dear to my heart, being from Wisconsin, and we've got a lot of Quick Stars that they just fit so well with our demographic.
Oh yeah.
You know, everybody's driving from all over the Midwest to come to our tournaments, and they bought in right away and became a season-long sponsor for us. And then we've got individual sponsors for just about every tournament. Some of our proprietors throw a lot of money at it. Plaza Bowl, $1,000 for the tournament we have there that they throw at us. And Iowa Open, even though we don't give them much for lineage, Tom Tursky gives us $400 or $500 every year as added prize money for the Iowa Open. And I mean, I go to those places because they're great proprietors and they support the greater Iowa.
Yeah.
So the guys wonder maybe why we always keep going back same places. Well, that's the reason, guys.
Yeah, for sure. And you had mentioned earlier too about your family working with you to run these things. It takes a village, to run a good tournament. I see it in the tournaments that I bowl around here and, in Minnesota and all that stuff. Was that something that always was when you took over the GIBA? Your family just stepped in? Did it take some convincing?
This one's hard for me to talk about.
Yeah.
My family has actually, my wife started helping way back in the days when I first started. She would start doing some score collection, some of that kind of stuff. She came to virtually every tournament I bowled, an awful lot of them anyway. When she wasn't working on weekends, she worked retail, so sometimes she was working on Sundays. But just probably in the early, 90s, my daughter, who was born in 1983, so she was 10, 11, 12 years old, she started helping a little bit. And my son Greg and my daughter Jennifer would, before they had automatic scoring, they would sit and keep score for my pair and follow along. So they've been part of my bowling career pretty much right from the start. When I bowled in 1983 and bowled really well in Niagara Falls at Nationals, my wife was 8 months pregnant, made the ride all the way out there. She has also been to 46 consecutive national tournaments with me.
Wow.
So, yeah, they're just a little bit of a part of my bowling career and everything. So, did it take a lot to convince them to be part of this thing when we took over to run the tournaments in '99? Not really. It takes probably more now. It's a little tough. My wife, this takes a lot of our time that impacts whether we can go travel. We have to plan around tournaments and things like that. And I really appreciate her willingness to do some of that, even though I know she would rather not. But she still does. And my daughter Jennifer is a huge part of it. She's an expert with our software. She is definitely our spreadsheet guru. I'll tell you a little story about that here in a minute. And our website, fortunately, my son Greg is a web designer. Okay. So he is taking care of designing our GIBA website, and he keeps it up to date, posting results and the schedule and changes. And he has to make sure when I post the squad listings that he gets them fixed so people can look at them on their phones and it doesn't look like garbage. And he does all that kind of stuff. He puts all the links out there. You can reserve a spot by going to the schedule page, and there's a spot for each tournament. That's a button that says reserve a spot. Automatically sends me an email.
I'm feverishly typing here so I can bring it up while you're talking about it. This is what it looks like.
Yeah, he also designed the rotating 7 brands of Brunswick across the top, and you can click on the finals from the 2022 Fall Classic up there. We got they put together the poster with the pictures of our winners of our major events on it. He also puts all the sponsor logos at the bottom of the page. If you click on one of those, it'll take you to their website.
Okay. There you go.
So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff on there that's behind the scenes, and Greg takes care of all that. And there's no way, if we had to pay somebody to do that, we wouldn't have a very good website, I'm afraid. But he does that, and he gets a bowl at a tournament or two for nothing every year. That's his big payment,
Sure.
But no, they like being involved, I think. I know my daughter, when we run the 11thframe.com, we use a format that's a little unusual. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called the Flanagan format. Came from the fertile mind of Mike Flanagan. It's instead of bowling round robin head-to-head matches, you're bowling against everybody every game.
Okay.
If there's 48 bowlers that make the finals, the highest game, each game gets 48 points. The lowest gets 40. It gets 1. Well, guess what? To do that all by hand
is a
would
lot.
Be virtually impossible.
Yeah.
So my daughter Jennifer came up with an Excel spreadsheet that does all that automatically for us. She enters the games in order by the original standings, and clicks a button. Actually, as she's entering them, it's assigning them the score, the bonus points they get, and it's a live document, and does all that for us. But the only problem is we have to enter the scores twice. We have to enter once for brackets on our bracket program and again on the spreadsheet, but it takes her about 2 minutes to do all that. She's a whiz with the keyboard. So yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. And I wouldn't want to use that format every tournament, but boy, the guys love doing that once a year. You get huge swings. Guys that qualify in 40th place can get all the way up to the step ladder. So
sure,
it's pretty amazing format. But yeah, so we like to try things like that. And We've got a real active Facebook following, Facebook page for the Greater Iowa Bowling Association. Yeah, if you want to get entries, you have to have multiple ways of making that happen.
Yeah.
And I take them on my phone. I take them through text message, through Facebook message, through Greater Iowa Bowling Association Facebook messages, from the reservist spot on our website. You name it. If you can get the word to us, we'll get you in the tournament. That's why they fill so fast.
I bet. Yeah. So here's my two-part question. How much longer do you keep doing this? And what I mean by that is bowling competitively, but also running the tournament.
That's a Mike Flanagan question. Every time he runs one of our tournaments, he asks me that.
If you compare any little nugget of this show to Mike Flanagan, I am thankful, because Mike is like
he's the guru, no doubt about it.
Yeah. If he's Michael Jordan, I'm Luka Garza.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Man, I thought maybe as a bunch of the bowlers that bowled our tournaments for a lot of years turned 50 and started bowling senior stuff instead of maybe coming to bowl all the Greater Iowas, maybe that would be the time. But shoot, that was 4 or 5 years ago. Now, 2/3 of our tournament are 35 years of age or younger.
Yeah.
A lot of them are college kids. And I hate it when they call me Mr. Engelkes. But at the same time, I guess that's a show of respect.
Mm-hmm.
They love coming to bowl our tournaments. It doesn't matter if they shoot 200 under. They'll be back the next time because they want to keep trying. Mm-hmm. And, we did some things about, 15 years ago, shortly after we started running these things, that helped some of the young guys get involved. Doug Anderson, who was one of the top lefties for a lot of years in the Greater Iowa and across the Midwest, came up with this idea of how we could keep our base entry fee low and still attract the young players and still keep the other guys that wanted to play for more money coming. So we instituted this tier 2 thing that we run in most of our regular events, not our big ones, but the regular ones. Maybe the base entry fee might be $60, but for another $30, you get to play for more money. And that whole $30 goes in a separate prize fund.
Sure.
So only the bowlers that get in that optional play there. And there's a bet you win fund that goes along with that. And there's a bet you win for the base tournament. So, the guy that wins the tournament, if he gets in all that for $100 of entry, he's going to get $1,200 or more.
Wow.
And with a low base entry fee. Well, the young guys that want to get their feet wet and try out some of these tougher patterns, they loved it.
Yeah.
Started coming to the events. Pretty soon they got out of college, started working. Now they're playing in the $30 extra, and that's the way it kind of started growing. Sure. Was keeping the base guys we had and attracting some younger players, some guys that maybe were afraid to come and bowl against the best guys. And they say, well, for $60, I'll give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spend $100,
right?
But I'd come bowl for $60.
Mm-hmm.
So we have come up with lots of various types of ideas like that over the years. Gotten a lot of sponsors. Virtually every one of our tournaments has at least $1,000 in added prize money, whether they're small ones and the larger ones are $5,000, $6,000. And I won't do a high top heavy prize fund ever. That just doesn't happen. I don't believe in that. We get $5,000, $6,000 in added prize fund money, and I pay 1 to 3 with a top prize of about $2,800, $2,900. But fifth place is still going to walk out with $1,100, $1,200.
There you go.
And last cash is usually somewhere around $230, $240.
Okay.
So, Yeah, I found out a long time ago, if you spread the money around a little bit, they keep coming back.
Yep.
And if you don't make the pattern so hard that at least a third of the people shoot decent, the other 2/3 don't get so mad because they say, "Hey, somebody else hit them.
Yep.
Why can't I?" You know,
For sure.
and I make sure spares count, and that's what's important.
Yeah. So I don't know on the GIBA. I don't know on the competitive bowling.
Oh man, I tried to give you the roundabout story and avoid that. No,
You'd be a great politician.
I will. I'll say this: most likely, I'll be around for 2 or 3 more years. I
Okay.
would guess. Part of the problem is when I apply for the added prize money from the Convention Visitors Bureau, it's always a year in advance. So it's hard to apply for that and then say, "Sorry, I'm not going to run a tournament."
Right.
So yeah, when I get that letter, it's kind of saying they accepted the grant and are going to give us the money. It's a double-edged sword there. Good, and then oh shoot, I got to do this again.
Good. Yep.
But no, I still enjoy the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd love at some point to pass it on, but boy, oh boy, people don't know what it takes.
Yeah.
I don't. It takes a family.
You
It
gotta
really
love
does.
it. And you all have
It
to love
takes
it.
a whole village, and I'm fortunate my village is all family members.
Yeah.
Because I know I can count on them.
Mhm.
And there's times we have the full day tournament. I go down to Plaza Bowl down in Clinton, and I go by myself. I run the whole thing myself because I just can't ask them to leave at 5:30 in the morning and get home at 2:00 in the morning the next
Sure.
day. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work for me to do it myself, but I've done it enough times. It's just second nature, and it works.
Sure.
And there's 3 or 4 other tournaments now. I guess 3, I think, that I run by myself.
Oh,
The rest of them they help out with.
okay.
And of course, I don't bowl those tournaments then.
Yeah.
But I still I'll bowl the big ones.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
Because I love the challenge. I bowled the Iowa Open all but the year I had my first knee surgery. I was on crutches during the Iowa Open, so I missed that. Would have been I was 40, so it would have been 91.
Okay.
I didn't bowl, but I bowled, I think, pretty much all the rest of them, and I haven't done quite as well the last few years. I'm not real good at that 4th and 5th arrow stuff anymore, which you have to get way in there on that flat pattern. And
Oh yeah.
but I still love the challenge.
Yeah.
I think the last tournament I won was on the highway to help pattern at May City 3 or 4 years ago, and that's a tough one, and you had to play in. So I keep trying.
Yeah.
And I make the cut more than I miss it in the big ones in our Ebonite tournaments. So, and if I don't make the cut, sometimes I get a senior check. So, because we do pay 1 to 3 for seniors and 1 to 3 for females that bowl those events. And that money comes out of the bracket money too.
Yeah. And I mean, against the competition, we talked about Nate a little bit, and who's this here?
Well, that would be me, but
no.
This is Dan Healy.
That's
Daniel
Healy.
He's from Cedar Rapids.
And I'm glad I landed on that one because it looks like he's here live. He wants to thank you and Rosie and Jennifer. He says the Greater Iowa tournaments are always ran great.
Yeah, he's a great kid.
Yeah.
Young, but he can play.
Yeah. But yeah, to cash against these guys, Brady Stearns and Spencer Robarge, I mean, the list goes on and on. So you can definitely see the type of talent that's that's coming into these events. If people are interested in bowling, and I know you said there's a lot of different places to get to you. someone's new, they're either in Iowa or from out of state, they want to make the trip in. Iowa Open may not be the one, but how do they connect with you?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of different ways. I would suggest they go to the GIBA website,
Okay.
GIBA-bowling.com, or they can email me at Engelkes, GIBA@gmail.com. I'm almost up to 1,100 email contacts.
Wow.
For the tournaments.
Okay.
I now have there's 3 separate groups that I had to break it apart because I can't send that many at one time through Gmail. They won't let me do it.
Yep.
But there's about 350 on each of those 3 separate groups. So I like to use email for the main reason is I have everything in writing then. I can refer back. When did they contact me? What did they say?
Yep.
Did I reply to them or did I forget to reply to them? All that kind of stuff. I really like email. I know that's a little old-fashioned.
Hey,
I also use Facebook Message quite a bit for the younger guys. A lot of them would rather do that.
Sure.
Most of them do have, especially the college kids. They all have college emails.
Yep.
So, and they do check those fairly regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be probably my preferred method. They can contact me via text at my phone. Lots and lots of different ways. If they're on Facebook, just go to Greater Iowa Bowling Association Facebook page. Lots of information there. My daughter takes care of that. Most of it I post once in a while, but she does most of the posting. That's where we post results from our tournaments. And in the big events, she posts after each game. The scores are all posted there, and a link that takes them directly to the live document that's in Google Docs. She's got that all arranged, and that way people following along on the live streams can follow along on the Google Doc too and get the up-to-date standings all the time.
There you go. Yeah.
Bowlers can go to that Google Doc and get standings as well.
Okay.
I don't like killing trees, so I don't put a copy of the standings on every pair.
Yeah.
I'd never print out the brackets. I'll print them out for somebody if they want. We do a brackets alive list. That's all I print out. And the guys that bowl our tournaments are used to that. They know that when it's all said and done, we double check the payouts correct. And when we put out the sheets to pay out, it's got everything in it. The basic prize list, brackets, high game pots, bet you win if it's doesn't have a finals that impacts the bet you win. All that stuff is right on that sheet, and they get paid, and we pay out within typically 15 minutes to a half hour after the tournament's over.
Okay. Wow.
And everybody gets paid day of if they stick around.
Yeah.
I don't hardly write any checks anymore.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, there's a couple things I took out of that. First of all, again, if you didn't understand all that, you can always contact me. I can get you in contact with Joe. And if you have a Gmail like Joe does, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel. If you like this content, want to see more of it, we're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. You can click that little icon in the corner. Doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't kill any trees either, because Joe doesn't like to build trees, and you get to be the first to know when we post new videos and go live. Joe, the last thing we do on these shows is go off the sheet, and what I mean by that is we have you challenge somebody. It doesn't have to be the greatest bowler in the world, but certainly can be, to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef. So we look for people who are passionate about the sport and have a unique story to tell. So Joe Engelkes, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode?
Well, I would like to, we kind of talked about this a little before the show, but I would like to challenge Eric Littig, the head coach at St. Ambrose and the administrator for the Greater Iowa Scholarship Bowling Tour. Yeah. I think he would be an awesome individual to have on here and tell his story. He's got a ton of history of the sport around the Midwest. He knows a lot about the college scene and the game and what the successes have been there. And he has sent a lot of very good bowlers through his ranks up to the Greater Iowa Bowling Association. There's Shannon Buchan's and Matt McNeil's and the guys like that. And, man, I miss not having those guys come out and play our tournaments. Matt moved to Florida. Man, I miss him. He was a great guy and won 3, 4, 5 of our major events over the years, a couple of 11th frames and at least one of the back when they were Fusion Realtors Opens. Guys like that, it was nice to get to be great friends with them.
Yeah. Not
just bowling competitors. Great guys, and they do a lot for the sport too. And Matt Gazin won our event not too long ago. Now he's highly involved in the sport. There's just a lot of people. Rob Gottschall is a great friend, and I don't know, maybe I got to tell a little story here.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Why I Certify USBC promotions?
Yeah.
My son and I are part of that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we had to travel to Atlanta for a photo shoot. And how in the world we got chosen for this photo shoot out of all the members of USBC, and there was about 20 of us that went down there, 16, something like that, from all walks of life. But I found out what happened is they had a meeting at USBC headquarters with some of the hierarchy on this program, and they were throwing out suggestions for people. Well, my good old buddy Rob Gottschall, I know it was him, and he was up for the when the women were up here for 10 days for the in August
PWBA
for the World Championship
Waterloo
and the other 2 tournaments.
Yeah,
other 3 tournaments, I guess it was. He was up here, and I asked him, and he says, "Well, yeah, I might have had something to do with that." But yeah, now I found out that Greg and I are going to be on one of the masking units at Nationals this year. So
wow,
our pictures will be up in lights. So I don't know if that's cool or not, but it was an interesting experience.
No, that's more than cool. That's incredible.
And for the people that don't think they get anything for certifying, and I understand it, I'm not huge on everything USBC does. At the same time, we wouldn't have nationals without it.
Yep.
That's the highlight of my season every year. If they didn't do anything else,
sure,
I would join.
Yeah.
And I happen to be president of 2 bowling leagues and been that way for about 40 years. And, more than that, gee whiz, I'm going on 50 years. I keep forgetting I'm 72 instead of 60. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you got to have an organization. Do they do everything right? No. Do I agree with everything they do? No. Same time, it's a big job. I wish they would be more transparent. I'm a big believer in what Jeff Riggles talks about when it comes to that. But at the same time, I'm glad somebody's there running that tournament.
Yeah.
They have to be, for me.
Well, back to Eric. Eric, if you're watching this live or on replay and you want to take Joe up on his challenge, you can find me on Facebook or email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com. We can make that happen, and I'd love to have you on the show. This is a nice comment from Jennifer. Love you, Dad, and your commitment to bowling and everything it has brought to our family.
That's my girl.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Roger says, thank you, Joe, for running great events. So yeah, like I said, proof is in the pudding. If you've got people that are entering and willing to, to sing your praises for it, you must be doing something right. So yeah, congratulations to you on, on running a fantastic scratch tournament tour, and hopefully continued success in that. I do want to mention our next 2 live events. Of course, the Feftacular #2, coming up this next Wednesday, the 22nd, where I go and sub with this band of misfits called the Serbskis Club. Always a good time, and doing it live for the first time this year. And after that, we're going to have another tournament director on, Carl Ong. If you're not familiar with his name, you might be familiar with his tournament, the Agent Ong Open in Arizona, that he just ran for the first time. He's coming back next year. He's got a lot of good stuff coming up for that. He'll talk all about that and his bowling story a week from then on Wednesday, November 29th. But Joe, thanks again for coming on. And again, continued success with that scratch tournament tour. We'll definitely be paying attention to what you guys are doing out there.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you having me on, and thanks to everybody that watched and made all the nice comments. It was a really good experience, and I will drop Eric a line.
There you go.
And try to recruit him for you.
Awesome. I appreciate that, and I hope Eric will too. But I also appreciate all you watching. As always, thank you so much. You keep showing up, and we'll keep doing this. But until next time, be just and fear not. We'll see you at the FEF Tech